It was raining in the morning, and the app decided to tell me who I was. Soft rain, the kind that makes the rosemary lean toward the kitchen window and turns the street to silver. The kettle hummed. I held my blue mug with both hands and watched steam rise like a small, kind cloud. The house smelled like toast and lemon soap. Quiet, steady, familiar. My son napped in his bassinet by the table, one hand open like he was holding a secret. A chime came from the bowl by the fruit where we keep our phones during meals. "We updated your ethnicity estimate," the screen glowed, the little green tree smiling like a friend with news. My husband picked it up, wiped a circle on the damp glass with his sleeve, and turned the phone toward me like a stage. "Babe," he said, bright and too careful at the edges, "you should see this." He scrolled with a thumb that has fixed hinges and hung rosemary and signed mortgage checks. Percentages slid into place. Boxes shifted, colors bled, labels changed. The line that used to anchor me, my mother's line, my grandmother's stories, the songs my aunt taught me on Sunday, was gone. "See," he said, soft, "it was just family lore. You can stop worrying about all that. My parents will be relieved." The kettle clicked off. The bassinet creaked as my voice stretched. I reached for the phone and saw my name at the top of the app and his email at the bottom. "I helped you set it up, remember? You hate passwords." I set the phone back in the bowl and opened the window a finger's width. New air moved through the room. "Tea at noon?" I said, and he frowned, surprised. "It's not a big deal," he said. "Everyone learns new things about themselves." "Science." "Tea at noon," I repeated, and he nodded, because that is what we do when a day needs a table and a kettle and two hands wrapped around something warm. At 10, my cousin Leo texted, "Check your email," with a tree emoji. At 11, the clinic courier in a raincoat knocked and handed me an envelope with my name and a second for my husband, printed copies of DNA matches Leo had asked me to get for the archive, he'd said. "Paper feels different than screens," he told me, laughing. He was right. I put the envelopes next to the app's bright promise and the small cream card my grandmother left in my ring dish years ago. "Keep your stories." I looked at my son's open hand, at the rosemary brushing the glass, at my husband's phone in the bowl with a cheerful tree that now felt like a weed. And I made a choice. I would not shout. I would not let an app tell my baby which songs he gets to hear. I would bring paper and light to the table and ask my husband to sit in a room where the truth is not a push notification. At noon, the door closed with its soft click. I poured tea. I slid the envelopes onto the wood. "We'll start with this," I said. His smile flickered. The app hadn't lied, not really. The account had. And the truth in those envelopes, the one that would uproot more than a color on a screen, was about to sit between us like a small, steady tree that had been growing in our family soil long before anyone sold kits in bright boxes. I grew up in a house that knew how to hold stories. Tea on the stove, the kitchen window fogged for a minute, and then cleared. The rosemary by the sink leaning toward the light like a small, brave animal. The door closing with that soft, polite click, even when the radio was low. My grandmother kept a ring dish by the sink for the spare key, and a tiny folded card that said, "Keep your stories." She tucked it there the day I left for college. "When people tell you who you are," she said, "be polite and keep your stories." My name is Mara. I like simple, steady things. I work at the clinic library 3 days a week. I know the faces of people trying to be brave in quiet ways. I know how to say, "Take your time," and "You're next," so the line feels softer. At home, I keep a binder with tabs that say house, bills, health, notes. Paper helps when storms come.
I am not loud. I am hard to move when I decide to love something. My son and my roots are two of those things. Our house is another. My mother's people are the kind who mark time with songs and food and small rituals you can do on a Thursday without anyone clapping. My aunt taught me old rounds on Sundays while we dried dishes. Grandma told me where our name had changed when it hit a clerk's ear. We had a photo on the wall of a woman with my cheekbones, wearing a plain dress and a stubborn mouth. We called her the one who crossed. It wasn't grand. It was ours. Josh, my husband, comes from a family that likes plans. He is gentle and good with his hands. He can make a door glide without making a speech. He learned to carry heavy boxes without grunting because his father told him only the weak make noise. He works early mornings and hangs rosemary with nails he sets carefully. He likes to fix what can be fixed and oil what squeaks, and not think too hard about what doesn't belong to wood and screws. His parents live 20 minutes away in a house that smells like furniture polish and new calendars. They hold their history and diplomas and frames. They want things to be clear and tidy. They don't like lore. When Josh and I got serious, his mother patted my hand and said, "It's nice that you know stories." Then she asked about my credit score. At holidays, if I sang the old songs under my breath while washing up, she turned the radio up. "We have our ways," she would say, smiling like a reassurance to herself. When we married, we promised each other simple vows. Soup when you're sick, light on when you're late, truth in short words. We bought this house with the good door and the kind window and planted rosemary because it forgives you when you forget to water once in a while. Josh rubbed wax on the latch until it made a crisp sound. I put the ring dish by the sink with Grandma's card under it and felt like the kitchen had put its hand on my back. Our son Eli came in the late spring on a day that smelled like rain and bread. He sleeps with one hand open, like he is holding a secret. He has his father's shoulders and my grandmother's mouth. I hum old rounds while I fold his small clothes. I'm learning the new songs of the pediatrician's office, the measured ones about ounces and hours. I am tired in a way that feels like the whole world is a weighted blanket and the kettle hum is the only voice that knows what to say. Leo is my cousin and our family's tree keeper. He loves forms and old records and the click noise a microfilm machine makes when you roll it too fast. He never met a kit he didn't want to put in a mailer. He likes to call on Saturdays and say, "Do you have 15 minutes for your great-great?" as if he could schedule a ghost. At Thanksgiving, he set 3 bright boxes on the table and said, "Spit, people." And we all rolled our eyes and did it because we love him and because it made the day feel like it had a project besides dishes. I did my kit 2 years ago and got the cheerful email and the map with dots and the list of matches that felt like a party I didn't know I was invited to. I didn't build a tree on the app because I keep trees in Leo's hands and stories in my kitchen. I looked at the percentages and smiled at the way numbers tried to make a quilt out of lives. I stuck the login and password on a sticky note behind a tab in my binder and forgot them. It felt nice to see a bright app nod at stories I already knew. Josh liked the mechanics of the app, the slick design, the way it tries to make everything into a timeline. He set up his and added his parents with careful fingers. He liked being told that science agreed with his family's frames. They threw a small party when the app said exactly what they expected it to. His father toasted, "Good lines," as if they could be drawn with a ruler. When I got pregnant with Eli, Josh's mother went to the closet and took out a box labeled with their family name and the word blankets in a tidy hand. She put it on my table. "We'll baptize in June," she said, not as a question. I nodded and said, "We can talk," and put the box in the back room because my mother's way of welcoming babies involves different water and different words. When I brought it my ways, his father said, "That's cute. Family lore is sweet, but the app will tell you the truth." I smiled and washed the cups. People show you who they are if you keep the kettle on and don't interrupt. In the month before Eli was born, Josh suggested we update my login because the app gets better all the time. I couldn't find the sticky note with the password in the first place. He made an account with his email, so you don't have to remember. I let him because my brain was full of other numbers, contractions, due dates, blood pressure. He asked me if I wanted to buy the upgraded features. I said no. He bought them anyway. It's on sale. I want to give Eli a tree. He said it sweetly, and I kissed his cheek and opened the window a finger's width. The week after Eli came, the app chimed on Josh's phone with little green leaves and bright promises. He read me fun bits in the voice he uses when he wants to make something a game. "Do you know you have 5 cousins within 20 miles?" he said, as if there were prizes. I nodded and slept when I could, and let the app be a small toy in a big room. I didn't want my baby's first month to be about colors on a phone. I wanted it to be about staring at his ear and giving him the small wire basket of his father's childhood socks because I liked the shape. Josh's parents came every Sunday at 3 with casseroles and statements. His mother brought a family Bible with flattened flowers inside. She put it on the table like an old friend visiting. She said, "We'll write Eli's name here," laying a careful finger on a blank line. "In June." I told my stories in small ways, by singing while I chopped onions, by lighting a candle in the afternoon because my grandmother used to, by putting stones on the windowsill because my aunt always said houses like to hold something from outside. Josh smiled and said, "Cute," and his father sighed and laid another fork. 2 days before the app chimed with the update, Leo called and said, "Check your email." He sounded excited and careful at once. "I found a new digitized set. I sent you a link to Grandma's Town, and I'm sending printed DNA summaries." He laughed. "Paper feels different than screens." He asked if I wanted him to connect me to a group on the site. I said no. "I'm overwhelmed," I said. "Send me paper. I'll read it next to the kettle." He promised to drop it by the clinic copy desk because he works there on Wednesdays and likes to put things in people's hands. The app chime on Josh's phone came with a cheerful tone, the kind that sounds like a toy you buy because you're sure your baby will love it and then find under the couch a year later. "We updated your ethnicity estimate," it said. He made a gesture with his shoulders that meant, "See? Science." He turned the phone toward me like a stage. The little map moved. Colors shifted. The bit that had always anchored me, the one that matched my grandmother's cheekbones and the songs my aunt taught me, was gone. It wasn't reduced or softened. It had flipped off like someone had turned a switch. "See," he said, too bright. "It was just family lore. You can stop worrying about all that. My parents will be relieved." It was the way he said "my parents" and "relieved" that made my chest remember a thing my brain had filed under "always check later." His email was at the bottom of the screen. He had helped me set it up. He had the password. He had bought the upgrade on sale. He had turned the radio up when I sang. He had said "cute" to the candle. He had done it kindly. That is how the worst parts get in the door. Kindly. I set his phone in the bowl by the fruit and opened the window a finger's width. I picked up Eli and kissed his hair and felt the shape of my grandmother's stubborn mouth in mine. "Tea at noon?" I said, and Josh blinked as if I had said court when I said kitchen. "It's not a big deal," he said, reaching to tuck the phone back into his pocket. I put my hand gently over his and left it in the bowl. "Tea," I repeated. "At noon."
At 10, Leo's email arrived with a link to old digitized pages that looked like long rain. "Town Registry, 1912, his subject line said. He had underlined one name and sent a photo of a woman with my cheekbones.
At 11, one of the clinic couriers knocked in a raincoat and handed me 2 cream envelopes. "Printed summaries," he said, smiling like a person who likes being useful. "Yours, and he asked for your husband's too." He tapped the top one with a friendly finger. "Paper feels different than screens." He was right. I put the envelopes on the table next to the bright, cheerful app and the little cream card in my ring dish that said, "Keep your stories." I looked at my son fingering the air in his sleep, at the rosemary brushing the glass, at my husband's phone smiling from the bowl, and I felt the tilt and the steady all at once. The app wasn't a lie. The account was. The truth in those envelopes wouldn't be about colors. It would be about which names belong on which lines, and which emails set up which kit, and whose spit was in which tube. Josh's shoulders have fixed hinges, and his thumbs know how to set nails just so. He wanted an easy way out of a hard conversation with his parents. He is a fixer in all the ways that work for doors, and none of the ways that work for people whose stories live in kitchens. I loved him. I love him. Both can be sentences in a paragraph that ends with, "We cannot keep this house together with an app password." My mother's voice lives in my head next to the kettle. "Start with tea, then tell the truth in short words." I boiled water. I set cups on the table. I opened the window a little more. New air moved through the room. Josh walked in at noon with his shoulders squared, as if he were ready to carry a box. I had paper. I had a baby who knows how to sleep through a storm if the house tells him it is safe. I had a blue mug. I had my stories. I was ready to set them next to the app and ask my husband to choose the room we live in. At noon, Josh sat where he always sits on Sundays when we have pancakes. The chair by the window where the light makes his hands look gentler than they feel when they hold a wrench. The app smiled from the bowl by the fruit. The 2 cream envelopes sat between our cups like quiet witnesses. "Phones," I said, and tapped the bowl. He frowned. "We're just looking at an app, Mara." "So we can hear each other," I said. "Please." He put his phone in the bowl with a little sigh, like a man unloading a tool he thinks he might need later. I poured tea. Steam made the room soft around the edges. Eli sighed in his sleep the way babies do when the house has told them it is safe. "We're going to speak in turns," I said, the way my mother would have. "Short sentences, no shouting. If I ask something and you need a minute, say, 'Not yet.' But if you lie, I will pour tea and wait until the lie leaves the room." He tried to smile. "You and your rules." "Me and my rules," I said. I slid the first envelope toward me and opened it. A simple page, my name at the top, the match list below. My mother's cousin, 20%. Aunt Etta, tidy dot. Leo, high. The percentages lined up like a short choir saying, "Yes, the songs you sing are not hobby, they are home." I said, "This is mine," and set it down. I slid the second envelope across. "This is yours." His forehead creased, the way it does when a bolt won't loosen. He didn't reach yet. "Mara, the app, science updates, it's not politics, it's numbers." I said, "Then we can talk about numbers. Open it." He tore the top, pulled the page out with careful fingers like he was pulling a splinter he wasn't sure was ready. His eyes flicked down the neat lines. They stopped on the part nobody expects to be a sentence. The page had a boxed line. Parent-child relationship, not consistent with reported father. Below it, a name marked close family, high, followed by half-sibling, uncle, aunt. He put the paper down. He picked it up. He put it down again. He laughed once, air and surprise. "It's wrong," he said. "Leo likes to think these kids are the truth. They make mistakes. It's noise." I said, "Paper feels different than screens." Not to tease, to anchor. Leo asked the clinic to print both because he found something odd. He didn't want to say it over the phone and be wrong. He sent a courier. He knew I would read it next to a kettle. Josh looked at the bowl with the app and then at the window. The rosemary brushed the glass like a little metronome. He said, "My mother told me once not to dig. She said, some things don't need modern eyes." He swallowed. "I made the account because you kept losing your login. I wanted to make it clean before June. I wanted to show them, not make a fight before we wrote his name in the book." "In June," I repeated. He nodded. "They said they'd help with school if we kept it straightforward. They don't mean harm. They want life to be easy. Easier if my songs are a hobby," I said. Not accusing, just setting the sentence down. He flinched. "I didn't mean to erase you." "But you did, in an app," I said gently. "You used your email. You bought the upgrade. You showed me a screen and called it science. Did you change anything else than a password and a tone?" He stared at the paper again. His mouth opened and closed around a small breath. He finally said, "I used a sample image in the upgrade. They have a learn more screen. You can tap communities. I took a screenshot to show my parents how it was, not what you say it is. I thought it would be easier. I was going to tell you." You held up a picture of someone else and told me to stop worrying about lines my grandmother put her hand on. I kept my voice even. Eli stretched and settled. "That is not easier. That is a lie. Not the app, the account. You." "I was protecting us," he said now, as if the sentence could outrun the room. "From months of comments, from my father, from Sundays where you look like you're swallowing stones. Protecting us by unlocking the door and letting something ugly sit at our table. You invited it when you hid my name with the picture." He reached for his tea and missed the handle, fingers shaking. The cup made a small sound against the saucer. "I didn't know about," he gestured to the paper with his other hand. "My mother said, 'Don't dig.' I thought she meant don't waste money, not don't meet your own blood in a lobby." "I don't know what this means yet," I said, tapping the boxed lines. "I know what it does not mean, that my stories are optional because the little tree wanted to be neat for your parents." I slid the app out of the bowl and set it on the edge of the table with the screen dark. "We need to call Leo. We need to speak to support. We need to stop letting your email decide what my son hears at naps."
Josh's shoulders have always been the place where he carries everything he cannot say. I watched them lower and then tense again. "If we tell them," he said, looks hard to the side, like a man staring into a dark pipe and hoping he can see the clog, "it will break my father." "If we don't," I said, "it breaks us." He closed his eyes like someone bracing for a door to slam. It didn't. The door made the good sound it always makes, only the room changed its coat. "Last night," he whispered, opening his eyes again, "I sat on the couch and made a second screenshot, one without your colors. I sent it to my mother. She texted back a heart. I felt relieved. Then the courier brought your envelope. And this." He touched the page with his finger where the box sat. "I grew up thinking frames keep everyone safe. Maybe they keep things out. They can. And sometimes they hold a picture straight. This is one of those times. I tapped the line on the will that lives in my head even when I am not touching the cream paper. Keep your stories. We owe the truth to our son. He gets to have his tree. He gets to have your branch and mine. He gets to have Leo call and ask him to spit on a Thanksgiving 70 years from now. He does not get to have a house that tells him to pretend because his grandfather likes tidy." He nodded once. "Okay," he said. The word was small and a little raw. He looked at the page again, face going older in seconds. "He have to call my mother," he said, "and my father." "Not alone," I said. "Not today. Leo will sit with us. He knows how to point at paper in a way that makes rooms stand still. We'll do it with tea." He winced. "They'll think the tea is your idea." "It is," I said. "Good. Let them drink it." We sat with the paper and our cups as if they were two people we were getting used to having in our house. Eli sighed, and his mouth did the little fish thing that makes my heart think it can lift a car. It cannot. It can hold a truth. Josh reached across the table like a man handing a tool back to the person who knows what to build. He said sorry, and about all of it. I wanted easy more than true. He did not ask me to forgive him. He did not say the word just. He did not ask me to be gentle for his mother. That is a start. The tree on your phone is not our house. This is. We start here. He nodded. "Rules?" he asked, almost a smile. "Rules," I said, and took out a piece of paper and wrote them the way I write everything that keeps a room from falling apart. My account, my email, my password. You can look with me. You will not log in without me. No screenshots to your parents. We meet them with paper and Leo. We call support today and ask them to verify kit IDs. We meet your parents Sunday at 3 with tea. We bring the printouts. Leo comes. We do not sing, but we do not turn up the radio. We do not baptize, name, or bless this child without both of our ways on the table. He read the list and nodded at each line like a man measuring a board. "Okay," he said again. He reached for his phone and then looked at me. I slid it over. He called support. He put the call on speaker. A woman named Alia with a steady voice said, "I can see 2 kits, one in Mara's name, tied to email number 1, and one created 3 weeks ago, tied to email number 2, with no sample attached. It uses a demo ethnicity chart for learning. I can merge accounts back to the sample. I can lock the login to Mara's email. I can send a printed verification." Her voice did what Mr. Greens had done in the bank for Nancy, made something that wanted to be chaos sit down. "Please," I said. Josh closed his eyes and blew out a breath through his nose like a man setting a heavy box down without breaking his foot. "Yes," he said. "Do all of that." Alia asked if there was anything else. I looked at the box on the page with his name and the "not consistent" line. "We know," I said. "We are not asking you to tell us what to do. We needed someone to tell us what happened. She said, "Paper is good, people are better," in a way that made me think, my cousin will love her. She sent the verification to my email, and for the first time since I feared I had lost a song to a phone, my shoulders lowered. At 3, Leo came in with his binder and a face that has been trying to help people with paper in kitchens since he was 10. He sat at the table and looked at the page and then at Josh. "Do you want me to say it?" he asked. Josh swallowed. "If I start," he said, "my father will tell me not to dig." Leo smiled gently. "He can tell me," he said. "I like shovels." We made 2 pots of tea because one never lasts when you invite the truth to sit. We set 3 cups. We put Eli in his bassinet where the light makes his fingers look like little leaves. We opened the window a finger's width. Rain tapped. The room was ready. Our marriage would either learn to live in a house that didn't let an app decide its songs, or it would uproot. I made soup because I didn't know what else to do with my hands. I stirred until the smell made the room feel like a room again and not a test lab. Josh called his mother. He said, "Come at 3," in a voice that had learned how to say nouns and times and not ask anyone to applaud. They arrived on time, because some families keep time even when they cannot keep quiet. His mother came in with her careful hair and a jar of polish in a bag, as if the day needed shined. His father stood with his hand on the frame like he built it. He said, "We updated the app." He smiled like a man who thinks the day is going to do what he told it. Josh looked at me. I nodded to Leo. Leo put his binder on the table with a soft thud. We made tea. He said, "We have paper." He looked at the little green app in the bowl and flipped it face down, gentle as a prayer.
They sat at the table like they always do when they want to be the kind of people they say they are. His mother, with her careful hair and her jar of polish, peeking out of a bag like it could shine a day. His father, with his hand on the door frame a second too long, as if he had built the house and wanted it to remember. The rain made a soft sound on the glass. The rosemary brushed the window. Eli slept, one hand open like a small leaf. "We made tea," I said. "We have paper." I kept my voice even. Leo sat to my left with his binder, Josh to my right with his hands flat on the table, the way my mother taught us to sit when something real was about to be said. "We updated the app," his father said again, smiling like a man who likes numbers on screens. "It's neat when things line up." "We are not using the app," I said, and flipped Josh's phone face down in the bowl with 2 fingers, gentle as a prayer. "We are using paper." His mother's smile thinned. "Mara," she said kindly, the way people say your name when they're about to correct you. "Science has moved on. Family lore is sweet, but—" "Please," I said, and nodded at Leo. Leo opened his binder. He took a breath. He said what needed to be said, the way a good person reads instructions out loud when everyone else wants to guess. "We have 2 printed DNA summaries from the clinic. Mara's matches are consistent with the family we know. Josh's summary shows a not consistent line with the man on this table." He glanced at Josh's father and made his voice softer. "It also shows a close match with another man on this family tree, Peter." He tapped a name on his page, Josh's uncle, his father's brother. The room did the thing rooms do in that moment, got quiet in a way that made the clock too loud and the kettle too helpful, and my own breath something I could hear. "No," his father said, just that. His mouth a straight line. His mother swallowed and smoothed an invisible wrinkle on her sweater. Some tests are wrong. Those kits are for fun. They make graphs. They confuse people. These are from the clinic, printed, verified paper. She stared at Leo, then at me, then at Josh. We agreed not to dig, she said to him, voice low, like a mother reminding a boy a promise he made in the back seat of a car. Josh looked at me. He looked at the page. He looked at his hands. I set up a demo for Mara's account, he said to his parents, steady and small. I sent you a screenshot. It wasn't hers. I didn't want a fight before June. He raised his eyes. That was wrong. His father's jaw tightened. We will not have this conversation, he said. He pushed back from the table an inch, enough to make the chair make a sound. We are having it, I said, here, with tea, with paper. His mother held the jar of polish like she might fix something with it. There is no good outcome to this. We have been a family. That is enough. It is. And this is also true. Josh's paper says what it says. She looked at Leo like he had brought a storm. Put that away, she said. This is not a clinic lobby. This is our grandson's kitchen. This is our grandson's kitchen, Leo said, soft. He gets a tree. He gets all his roots. His father stood in the doorway for a heartbeat, then sat again because he is not a man who yells in kitchens. Peter is a good man, he said finally, voice flat. We were boys once. Things were messy. It was a long time ago. It doesn't matter. It does, Josh said, and surprised himself with the shape of his own voice. He touched the page with one finger. I grew up learning to carry heavy boxes without making a sound. I thought that was how to be a man. I made a fake picture because I wanted neat more than true. That is on me. I am sorry. I am sorry. His mother breathed out through her nose. We did what we had to do. You were a baby. We stayed married. We raised you. We gave you our name. We baptized you in June. We kept the book neat. And you taught me not to dig. And I dug anyway. And I lied to my wife. And now we are here. She lifted her chin. We will still write Eli's name in June, she said, a little heat in it now. Our way. I set down my cup. We will bless him our way and my way. We will not put his name in a book that requires me to erase mine to be welcome. His father stared at the table as if it might hand him a different page. I'm not capable of... Then he stopped. He pressed his lips together. This is foolish. It will pass. We can refuse to make it a thing. It is a thing, Josh said. It has been a thing my whole life. You told me not to dig. You told me neat was safe. I changed my wife's account because I thought frames keep the air from getting in. They also keep people out. I let them shut the window when you sang. I am sorry. His mother's face did what Nancy's had done in the bank, something I have only seen twice. When your mouth meets a truth it didn't plan to touch. She took the polish jar out of her bag and set it on the table as if it were the right thing to hold. It was one night, she whispered. We were young. We stayed married. It was the 70s. Nobody wrote it down. We thought we were doing the right thing. We did not want to break our parents. His father closed his eyes. Stop, he said. Not loud, not mean. Enough. He looked up at his son. You raised me, and I am grateful, and this is also true. We sat with the two truths for a long minute. The kettle hummed, rain tapped, Eli sighed. The rosemary brushed the glass. I watched the temperature in the room do the thing it does when paper sits too long, hot, then cool, then honest. His mother lifted her chin again, the way women do when they have been brave for a long time and are tired of being the only ones. "You will ruin everything," she said to me, soft. "I will keep my son's world honest. That is different." Josh looked at me. "What do you need from me?" he asked. Not his parents. Me. I touched the page where Alia's email had printed, merged, and locked. 3 things. No more screenshots. No more "not yet" to your mother. Therapy with a person who knows how to help men pull nails from old door frames and put them somewhere safe. I paused. "And you will move to the guest room for now." His father looked like he was going to speak. Leo coughed into his sleeve and looked at me like a person who would carry a box without telling you where to put it if you didn't have a shelf yet. Josh nodded. He looked like a man who had set down a story and picked up his own name. "Okay," he said. The word had shape. Guest room, no more screenshots, therapist on Monday. He looked at his parents. "I am not breaking with you," he said quietly. "I am changing how we all sit in this room." His mother's mouth tightened. "We will not come on Sundays if this is how tea tastes." She stood. His father stood too, automatically, like a frame that has always risen when a line tells it to and does not know what to do with a door that stays closed without being a punishment. "Not this Sunday. Next, if you are ready to talk about both, with paper, without erasing any of us."
They left with the careful backbones of people who learn to carry things without showing the weight. The door made its crisp, kind sound. I sat. My hands shook for the first time that day. Leo put his binder away and then put both of his hands around his mug and said, "Breathe, the way Grandma's card says." I did. Josh stayed. He stood in the doorway between the kitchen and the hall for a long time. He looked at Eli. He looked at me. He looked at the window. He looked at the bowl with the face-down app. "I would like to learn your songs," he said finally. His voice was small and old. "Not as a favor, as a language I should already have." "Good," I said. "Start with the round Aunt Etta taught me." I hummed the first bar low. He listened. He hummed. We were off, not toward a neat picture, toward a room that lets air in. He moved his pillow to the guest room that night without a speech. He sent an email to a counselor whose name Leo gave him. He set an appointment for Monday and put it on the fridge, not for me to see, but as a way to write it into the house. He texted his mother, "We will not write his name in June without both. We will bring tea and paper next Sunday. Leo will come." Then he put his phone in the bowl and left it. We ate soup in silence. We did not turn on the radio. I sang around under my breath while I dried the bowls. He didn't turn the volume up on anything. The window stayed open a finger's width. The rosemary leaned and stood. Eli slept on with his hand open, a small leaf that didn't know grown-ups were suddenly careful with air. Later, when the house was finally quiet, Josh stood in the doorway of the guest room with a stack of folded shirts. "This uprooted more than I knew it could," he said. "Not traumatic, just true. It had roots. The good kind don't mind you seeing them. The bad kind break pipes." He smiled the small, tired smile of a man who knows he is not the plumber in this room and is grateful someone else remembers where the shutoff valve is. He said, "Thank you for not shouting." I said, "Thank you for not making me." I wrote a line at the bottom of the day's page in my notebook. I saw, paper on a table, 2 old people holding back sentences, a man with his hands flat, a cousin with a binder. I heard, "No, enough, okay." I felt tired, steady, awake. I will do. Guest room, therapist, Sunday with paper, teach him around. We were not through it. We were in it. The tree had been turned upright. The app lay face down. The baby slept. The kettle hummed. The door made its good sound. The marriage we had would not come back. The one we could have might. It would require tea and paper and a window open a finger's width and some nights in a different room and the kind of apology that does not ask for a cookie, only a chair. I set the cream card back in the ring dish. Keep your stories. I placed the DNA printouts behind Leo's neat family tree in his binder because he wanted to take them for the file. I washed the cups. I wiped the table. I did not erase any lines. I left the window open. I went to bed alone and slept when I could and woke when Eli asked and hummed when I couldn't stop thinking about doors. In the morning, the rosemary leaned and stood. The lock clicked. The house remembered what it was for: feeding, truth, small brave songs. The tree on the app would not decide our day. The paper on the table would. The air would. The baby would. The round would. We would. We had turned. We would go on. The week after the paper sat on our table felt like a house learning its own sounds again. The kettle still hummed. The window still opened a finger's width. The rosemary leaned and stood. Eli slept with his hand open, a small leaf that didn't know grown-ups were suddenly careful with air. On Monday, Josh went to the therapist Leo found, the one who knows how to help men pull nails from old door frames and put them somewhere safe. He came home quiet, which I have learned can be a good sign. He put a card on the fridge with the next appointment, Monday 3, and went to the guest room without a speech. The house sounded like a patient thing, like someone learning to walk in a room she always knew how to stand in. On Tuesday, Aaliyah's email landed in my inbox with the tone I have learned to love. No whistles, just truth. It said, accounts merged, Mara primary email, 2-factor enabled, demo removed, printed verification mailed. I printed the email and slid it into my binder under health, behind the cream card that says, keep your stories. Paper doesn't heal a room. It gives a room a way to stop pretending. On Wednesday, I made soup because I didn't know what else to do with hands that wanted to steady something. I hummed the round Aunt Etta taught me. I did not turn the radio up. Josh sat on the other side of the table and tried the song under his breath. He got it wrong twice and then right. We did not look at each other. Eli slept. The window let in air. Sunday came again with rain and the same time on the clock. His parents arrived on time because time is the thing they honor when they cannot honor an unframed moment. Leo sat with his binder like a kind bolt, useful, small, solid. We poured tea. We put the app face down. We set the printed sheets and the family tree between cups. They were softer than last week without saying an apology you could write down. His mother took the polish out of her bag and did not put it on the table. His father did not touch the frame. They sat. Leo read the lines again, shorter this time. He said, paper amended, people unchanged. He pointed to the line with Josh's name like a teacher who was tired of making teenagers laugh and just wants them to read. We will not put his name in a book that requires us to erase Mara's ways, Josh said, before anyone asked. He did not look at his mother. He looked at me. We will bless him with both in June. We will not choose tidy. His mother's mouth pinched and then softened in a way I had only seen when she tried to open a new jar without asking me for a towel. She said your grandmother would not have known what to do with this. We didn't either. Then we learn, I said. With paper, with tea, with voices that do not turn radios up when a human sings. His father said nothing for a minute longer. He put his hand on his cup. He said, Peter will be here next week. We will fix it. You will not fix him, Josh said, steady. You will tell him the truth. You will sit with him the way you sat with your frames. You will not use my son as a pillow. They didn't stay for soup. They took their careful backs into the rain and looked like they wanted to put weather back in their pockets. It is hard to learn a new sky at 68. I did not clap.
I washed cups. I opened the window. We tried to do the work a marriage does when one of its posts has rotted. We sat in a room on Thursdays with someone third who kept a plant healthy and said things like, "Tell him what that did to your chest," and "Tell her what neat feels like when your father uses it as a prayer." We drew a small list on the back of a bill because the therapist said transitions need nouns and times. Guest room for now. No app without both of us. No hooks in sentences to parents. Therapist Monday, Josh. Thursdays together. Teach me a song. Teach me a silence.
Some Tuesdays felt like we were building something you could put small weight on. He read my grandmother's card out loud. Keep your stories, and didn't make a joke. He sat at the clinic library and waited for me after my shift with a paperback and a bag of oranges because he knows fruit steadies me. He told his mother, "No, Mom, not neat, tea," and stopped saying "not now" to me when I asked a small question. Some Wednesdays felt like we were pretending a stool with 3 legs could hold a body. He sent his mother a photo of Eli in the bassinet with the caption, "June," and she wrote back a blessing that swapped out my songs for hers and called it compromise. He told me after dinner and looked at the floor. "I'm trying," he said, ashamed. I wanted no fight. I said, "You want it easy. Easy is not for people who have to learn new doors." He nodded. He took his pillow back to the guest room without asking me if I wanted to hear him be sorry again. I was grateful for that. There was a day at the end of the month that decided things for us. He told me he had emailed a clean copy of our tree to his mother because she wanted to frame something for the party. He told me at the kitchen table, with his hands on the wood and his shoulders in the old shape, carrying boxes without making noise. He said, "I said no screenshots. She asked for a PDF. I thought paper." "Whose paper?" I asked. He looked at the counter. "Not yours," he said. "I made her one without your song. I thought I could stop a fight before it started." He looked up at me and knew the answer before I said it because we had drawn a rule about this in ink. I did not shout. My voice found the steady place you get when a water glass slips and you catch it, but the water still spills. "We cannot live in a house that requires me to hide from your mother's printer," I said. "We cannot raise a child in a marriage where an app is a tool for erasing his mother." He nodded. "I know," he said. "I tried too slowly for what I broke too fast." We called a mediator the next day. She had the same kind of soft hands as the therapist and a steady clock. We sat in a little office above a bakery and said what we needed to say like adults who have read enough books to know you do not break tables when you can write on them. We chose to make 2 houses for Eli that would keep his world honest. We wrote down the things we could keep. Eli sleeps at my house. He stays on a schedule with naps at 1 and soup on Wednesday. Josh comes at 5 on Tuesdays and Thursdays and brings nouns, not speeches, diapers, oranges, a book. Sunday visits are at 3. Tea at my table, singing not loud, radio not on. Grandparents may come if they say both ways out loud without rolling eyes. We met between the 2 at my house and drank tea while Eli slept, and we put both paper certificates in a folder that I labeled blessings and filed behind health, because that is where they fit. Josh stayed for tea, but not for dinner. That is our rule for now. He brings diapers and oranges on time. He tells Eli, "Your mother will teach you this," and does not turn up the radio when he hums. He hums wrong less. His mother brings a small jar of polish and does not put it on the table anymore. She puts it back in her bag and holds her grandson with both hands, like a person who does not need to fix the day. I still see the counselor. I still say out loud, I did not fail, and she still nods and hands me the good tissues, and I still laugh after I cry because the human body is silly like that when it is writing itself. I put a small card in the ring dish near Grandma's Keep Your Stories that says, your songs belong here. Some mornings I take it out and read it before I put on water. Some mornings the day is fine without it. Forgiveness has been arriving in threads, the kind you pull through the edge of a frayed cloth slowly, stitch by stitch. Some days I have thread. Some I leave the needle on the sill and make soup. Aaliyah's printed verification arrived in the mail, 2 pages that say merged and locked and primary. I put them behind the DNA summary in my binder. Paper will never replace stories, but sometimes it keeps people from using apps to uproot a life. Leo made Eli a tree like a scrapbook, paper and tape and photos with captions in his small, neat hand. He drew a line where the app would have snapped one and wrote Josh, raised by, and Peter, blood, and Ruth, stories, and Mara, songs. He put it in a binder with a cover that slides and a spine you can label because Leo knows we like to put things on a shelf where we can see them when we are tired. When Josh picks Eli up on Tuesdays, he stands on the mat and says, songs? And I hand him a new one. He takes it to the hardware store and hums under his breath while he counts screws and teaches Eli to point at the picture of the cat on the broom. On Thursdays, he brings Eli back at 7 and stands on the mat and says, thank you, like a prayer he has learned without being told. It is not the marriage I promised. It is the family I can keep. We meet his parents every other Sunday for tea. They still reach for tidy. They reach less. His mother said last week, looking at the photo on the tree Leo made, Peter will need to be at birthday, like a woman making a list. He will, I said. She nodded. Bring soup, she said. I will. There is a peace in the quiet now that wasn't here before we set paper on the table. The app sits face down in a bowl. The window opens a finger's width. The rosemary leans and stands. The door makes its good sound. We have a schedule written on the whiteboard by the pantry. 2 stirs, wins, soup. Free, transferred to the 529 Sunday tea. It looks boring. It holds. At night, when the house is dark and Eli's breath makes that small sound I love, I sit by the sink and say the sentence my grandmother wrote on a card in a different kitchen a long time ago. Keep your stories. I whisper to the window, we did. And I sleep when I can, and I wake when he does. And I hum old rounds while I rinse tiny cups and put them on the rack, and the next day comes. We did not save our marriage. We kept our family honest. The truth uprooted the old shape. We planted something that can live. It needs water and rules and open windows and paper when people forget. It needs soup on Wednesday and tea on Sunday and a little boy with an open hand. We kept the kitchen a kitchen. We kept our songs. We kept the door kind. Some mornings still begin with rain. It taps the kitchen window in that soft way, like someone who knows the house. The kettle hums. The rosemary leans toward the glass and stands back up, brave and green. I open the window a finger's width and let the good air in. The app sleeps in a bowl. The binder sits on a shelf with tabs. House, health, notes, and a new one my cousin labeled tree with paper and tape and photos and lines that did not have to be neat to be true. The cream card in the ring dish still says, keep your stories. Beside it, a smaller one. Your songs belong here. Life is quiet in the right ways now. Eli naps at 1. Soup happens on Wednesdays without fanfare. Josh comes at 5 on Tuesdays and Thursdays with diapers and oranges. He stands on the mat, hums the new round under his breath, then takes Eli to the hardware store to count screws and listen to the broom cat. On Sundays, we pour tea for grandparents who are learning to say both without rolling their eyes. We bless the day with 2 ways and call it enough. I still see the counselor. I still say out loud, I did not fail. Some days I do not need to. It is nice to know I can. Forgiveness keeps arriving in threads. I add stitches on days when Leo brings a new photo for the tree and Josh's mother texts a recipe with no comments attached. I leave the needle on the sill on days when the old radio tries to be loud. Threads hold, blankets can smother. If you stood in my kitchen now, you would see a table with 2 cups, a folder marked blessings, a green folder for the 529, a small stone on the windowsill, and a baby who sleeps open-handed because his house told him the air is safe. You would hear the soft click of the good lock, the kettle's low hum, and maybe a round hummed out of tune by a man in the doorway who has learned to ask for a song instead of a screenshot. This is what I learned, and I keep it taped inside the pantry where I reach for mugs. Start with tea. Tell the truth in daylight. Paper before apps. People before paper. Merge, lock, and print. No screenshots to people who like tidy better than true. Ask for help. Let cousins bring binders. Keep your stories. Soup on Wednesday. Window open. Breathe. It looks small written down. It is enough. It kept the kitchen a kitchen when a cheerful tree tried to be a weed. It let a child have all his roots. It turned a marriage into 2 houses without breaking the room where we tell the truth. On the first big rain of summer, I stood at the sink and watched drops stitch silver lines on the glass. I opened the window and the rosemary leaned in. Eli sighed in his sleep. Josh hummed a new song on the mat while he waited. Not loud, not tuning the radio to drown me. I touched the card in the ring dish and said thank you. To the room, to the rain, to the cousin with the binder, to the woman I am now who kept paper on her side and songs in her house. Then I poured tea and went on with my day.